Do you want to know who we think is at the very top of the Pac-12 offense and defensive side? Well, stick around.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in, Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and joining me on today's conversation is Justice from G5 Hive. I am super excited to have him on. If you don't know him from social media or from YouTube or from his podcast, they put in work across the entire group of six. I know it says G5 Hive, but he's going to tell you why that changes in just a minute. But I am so excited to have him on the show. They recently just dropped their Pac-12 Players of the Year, offensive and defensive side, as well as their first team offense and defense predictions. I really liked it, and I want to break that down and pick his brain here on today's episode. As we know, we're bringing you Pac-12 coverage like nobody else right here on Locked On Pac-12, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Justice, welcome on into the show, man. I'm so excited to have you on board. Before everybody, the comments come, I'm going to give it to you real fast. It's group of six now. What's up with the name?
Absolutely. I mean, we formed many years ago when it was G5 and P4, and I don't know, like it just doesn't feel right to rebrand at this point. And so we just say we're the G5 Hive with your G6 fix.
I love it. Oh, that's so good. That's catchy. You better put that on a t-shirt because I think that's legit.
Yeah,
I really do
thanks.
like that. All right. Well, today's episode, let's dive in first. First segment, I want to talk about your offense and defensive players of the year. Then we're going to go offense. Then we're going to go defense. Get your thoughts about the conference when we're all said and done. Really excited about this episode. So make sure you stick around. If you like these picks, shout it out in the comments. If you hate them, if someone's missing, shout it out in the comments. I want to get all that thoughts right here on this episode. Your offensive player of the year for the Pac-12, I agree with. I don't know if everybody will, but I certainly believe with this. You have Brad Jackson, the quarterback for Texas State. I truly do think he's the best quarterback in the conference. I know a lot of people might lean towards Maddox Matson. There are some good running backs in this conference. There's no doubt in my mind. But when you look at what he brings to the table, I think Brad Jackson is easily the most valuable player here.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what I would say to someone that wouldn't agree he's the best quarterback in the Pac-12, because I'm going to tell you he's the best quarterback in the G6.
Yes.
I mean,
let's go. Let's go.
Like we call him Bad Brad Jackson because
Yes.
he's a bad man. Like if he was at Alabama doing what he does at Texas State, he would have won the Heisman last year, and he'd be the Heisman, like, you know, the favorite again this year, right? Like he's a bad dude. I mean, over 3,000 passing yards, 21 passing touchdowns, almost 800 rushing yards, 17 rushing touchdowns. What?
Mhm.
Like when I look at when I watch Brad Jackson, I'm gonna tell you who he reminds me of. And
Okay.
when I say the name, I just want you to think of all the good things about this person and what we thought about him when he played college football, and that's Johnny Manziel. Like when I see Brad Jackson, like all the good things about, there's a lot of bad things, and Brad's nowhere close to any of those.
Football-wise.
But from a football perspective, how exciting, how electric he is with the ball in his hands. That's what he reminds me of, man. And
I love that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, 3,200 yards last year, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Fine. Okay, I get it. Redshirt freshman. I can live with that because he did good. Now, there were some moments Texas State couldn't win the football games. Hopefully that changes this year. Their defense wasn't the greatest. It wasn't Brad Jackson that was doing that. This is the first time G.J. Kinney is going to have a returning quarterback since being the head coach at Texas State. Oh, and by the way, maybe just throw this small thing in, Justice. He has 2,000-yard receivers coming back from Bo Sparks and Chris John Jr. That might help him out just a little bit as well. I know when you look at player of the year, you try to look at just the player alone, but his supporting cast is going to make it very easy for him to win this award, in my opinion, as long as things work out the way we think they will.
Yeah, he has the offensive supporting cast, he has the offensive system, and he has that electric dual threat ability, right? And so all those things combined, you know, easily make him the best quarterback, not only in the Pac-12, but in all of the group of six. And then, like, you know, the defense, you pointed out, not so great a year ago. Not sure they're going to be any better this year, but, you know, that helps him in terms of putting up numbers.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Very excited to hear that. Brad Jackson, you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments. If you're listening on audio, you can hit us up on Twitter, Christian S. Rauh for me. You can go hang out and check out Justice as well, Justice_2318. Go yell at him. Go yell at him as well. And you can check out all the stuff they have at G5 Hive for sure. The defensive side is interesting here. And when you posted this, your defensive player of the year for the Pac-12, it was not the unanimous pick. It was not the one that most people are going at, because most people are taking Jaden Virgin Morgan from Boise State. We're going to talk about him in just a little bit in a later segment. But you guys went with Simeon Harris from Fresno State, the cornerback. And I found that super fascinating. But you have some history on picking this one right. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear
a year ago,
backing up to this.
Yeah, and a year ago, our player of the year, not Pac-12, but Mountain West, was San Diego State cornerback Chris Johnson. And so, we like to show some love to the cornerbacks, right? Like, they're not necessarily the flashy guys. They're not the guys getting all the tackles. They're not the guys getting all the sacks, that sort of thing. But, man, like, these guys, if you think about it, they do incredible work because they're out there by themselves on an island, right? And Simeon Harris, Mr. No Panic, right? That's his nickname, and he has certainly earned that nickname. He has some ties at Fresno State. His mom was a cheerleader at Fresno State. He was originally committed to Fresno State, at the last minute, flipped to Colorado, spent some time at Utah State. Now he's back to Fresno State, and last year, man, had a huge year. 5 interceptions. That was 7th in all of college football. 54 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble, and 6 pass breakups. And over at the G5 Hive, during the season, we do this thing called our 2020 players. And that's our top players in the G6 at every single position group. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, guards, tackles, centers, edges, D tackles, linebackers, cornerback, safeties. And so we try to show love to everybody. But for the defensive backs, we use a metric called adjusted net yards against per coverage snap. That's a really fancy way of saying what happens when the quarterback throws your way. Yeah. Right? When you're being targeted by the opposing offense. And a year ago, Simeon was number 4 in the G6. Chris Johnson was number 1, right? He was number 1. Chris Johnson was number 1 in all of college football. But Simeon, number 4 in the G6, number 11 in all of college football. And he had a quarterback rating against of 40.7, which was right there with D'Angelo Pons, one of the great corners from the national championship team at Indiana. And so for us, we got to show love to those guys when they earn it. And Simeon Harris certainly earned it.
Yeah, and he's in a mad end defense, that obviously shined last year. The only really concerns I have about Fresno State is their offensive side this year, just with what happens with the unknowns of the quarterback, but nothing on the defensive side. They certainly are impressive. And Simeon Harris obviously leading the charge there. You make a very good case. You make a very good case on why he could be the player of the year on the defensive side for the Pac-12. But there are some really big names, and they're on that list on the defensive side. We'll get that to segment 3. But next, I want to get to the offense. Your all Pac-12 offense for the preseason is very impressive as well. Who'd you have at running back? Because there's a lot of running backs there. We'll do that next right here. It's Locked On Pac-12. But first, support for today's show comes from Indeed sponsored jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, well, Indeed sponsored jobs connects employers with candidates who connect and match specific needs like skills, certification, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires all over Indeed right now. And in the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So check out Indeed right now. It is the best place to hire the best candidates for your position. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. What else could you ask for when you need the right person to cut through the chaos? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of Locked On Pac-12 will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get the job, the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. But if you need to hire, this is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, welcome back to the show. It's Locked On Pac-12. I'm Christian Rauh, your host. We got Justice from the G5 Hive joining me on today's conversation because we are talking about the G5 Hive 2026 preseason all Pac-12 offensive team now on today's segment. And of course, the player of the year, Brad Jackson, is the quarterback. That makes a lot of sense. We're going to go through and just talk about a couple of these, but I'm going to give the full list for our audio listeners. Your two running backs are Dylan Riley from Boise State and Lucky Sutton of San Diego State. Your three wide receivers, Bo Sparks from Texas State, Chris Dunn Jr. from Texas State, surprised there, 2,000-yard receivers, and Josiah Freeman from Fresno State. Juice Vereen from Colorado State is your tight end. Roger Carrion from Boise State, your offensive lineman. Jimmy Liston from Utah State as well. Johnny Lester from Washington State. Those are your three offensive linemen. Oh, excuse me. That was your interior offensitive lineman. Your tackles, Roland Fullwood from Fresno State and Joseph Borjan from San Diego State. And then your kicker, Keon Afrukte from Utah. Afrukta. Thank you so much from Utah State on that one. Let's dig into talk a couple of these here. The running backs, obviously Lucky Sutton, Dylan Riley here. Dylan Riley is such an interesting running back. Obviously, he's got to share the load with Sire Gaines here, but what gave you the reason to give Riley over Gaines, and what makes you think that he can have enough since he's going to share that backfield?
Sure. I mean, last season at this time, if we were talking about Dylan Riley, people are like, why are you talking about Dylan Riley? He's fourth, maybe third on the depth chart at best, right? But, he showed really early on what he could do. Week 2 versus Washington, 6 carries with 123 yards. Followed that up the next week, 171 yards and 4 touchdowns against Air Force. The name of Dylan Riley's game is speed, and more speed. He's absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. He ran a 10.76 100 meter in high school. And you talked about Sire Gaines, right? He and Sire Gaines form a very dynamic thunder and lightning duo. And if you didn't know this, they were teammates from a very young age. They played youth football together, and they played running back on offense and linebacker at defense. So they have some familiarity with each other. But Dylan's he's the speed guy. He's the quick guy. He had a 200-yard performance against UNLV. He had 22 runs of 10 yards or more. 13 of those 22 were 20 yards plus. And that includes a 77-yarder and a 65-yarder. So, he's just so quick, so fast. Boise's going to run the ball some more. They're gonna lull you to sleep with Sire Gaines, right, hitting you in the middle, gashing you at the line, and then hand it off to Dylan Riley to bust one for 30, 40 yards. And Dylan Riley is the 1A, I think, in that offense, to Sire being the 1B. They both talk about being 1,000-yard backs. But Dylan Riley, from a viewer, from a watching standpoint, right, he's the electric guy, right? He's not the grinder, he's not the plotter like Sire. And I just think Dylan's in for if Boise State is going to be successful, both of those guys are going to need to be successful. And I think Dylan Riley is going to lead that team in rushing this year.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, this Boise State offense was very, very good, and they relied on their running game, no doubt. Last year, I think they relied on it too, but they had some hiccups down the road, and obviously Mattis Maxson had some turnover issues. Hopefully those can get corrected, and then you have a duo, which arguably is the best duo in the Pac-12 and the running back committee, with Dylan Riley and Sire Gaines leading the charge here. For sure. I love Lucky Sutton. We're going to leave that conversation for another day. On the offensive line, let's go to offensive line real quick before we get to some of these other weapons. There are 5 that you put on here. I'm a big fan of Roger Carrion from Boise State, but I don't want to talk about another Boise State player. I want to talk about tackle Joseph Borjan. I think he is super impressive in what he can do for Sean Lewis taking that next step, hopefully them becoming contenders yet again in the Pac-12. Obviously, they had a good year last year. Can Jaden Denikel stay healthy? Obviously, he dealt with a shoulder injury all last year. A guy like Joseph Borjan is going to have to make sure that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not familiar with Joe Borjan, Big Joe, as most people call him, he's an absolute mountain of a man, 6'8", 338 pounds. Wow. And he has a great story. He walked on at Arizona after JUCO, earned a scholarship at Arizona, started the Alamo Bowl for the Wildcats, and then off season decided, hey, I want to get back closer to home. Transfers to San Diego State. His first year at San Diego State, he was starting left tackle, injured his game in game 1 and was lost for the season. Came back last year from that injury, started every game at right tackle, had a really, really solid year, had a negative play rate in 2025 of 2.35% and only allowed 14 pressures over just about 300 pass block snaps. So, and he only gave up 3 sacks in the season. He's a really, really good offensive lineman. He'll be moving back to left tackle this season for the Aztecs, and he'll be a key to, keeping things running and keeping Lucky Sutton, going for the Pac-12, trying to get in that Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year race. And this year, he's also joined by his little brother Brian on the team. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, and Joe's someone I think that that come this spring, after the season, folks will be talking about him possibly for the NFL draft.
Is it truly little brother? Like is he 6'8" as well, or
he's a little bit he is a little brother, but yeah, he's not quite. He's a big dude. I want to say he's like 6'6", but he's not quite as big. He's not quite as big as Joe. And Joe's the middle brother. There's 3 of them, and Joe's the middle one.
Oh man, that's impressive. Wow. Okay, get over to the weapons here. We already talked about the running backs. How about tight end? Colorado State's such an interesting team this year on where they're going to be. I think they could finish last. They could show up and fight for the Pac-12 championship. I mean, Colorado State is such a wild card to me with Jim Mora, especially with some of the weapons he brought over from UConn, including tight end Juice Vereen. Lots of people love not just the name, not just the hype, but what exactly he can bring on the field. Maybe with Haas Haney throwing him the football, that could be really fun.
Yeah, I think with Juice Vereen, he's a guy that's only kind of scratched the surface of what he's capable of. I remember when he was a true freshman at NC State, and I'm pretty sure he was an early enrollee, and all spring camp and fall camp, all the talk out of NC State was about these 2 freshmen. Now, the other freshman at that time was Casey Concepcion, just got drafted in the NFL draft, but Juice Vereen was the other one. They were just raving about these 2 freshmen. Well, he saw some time his freshman year there at NC State. The following year, they bring in tight end Justin Jolie from UConn, outstanding tight end in his own right. Juice redshirted that year, and then he transferred to UConn last year. And then we kind of really saw him blossom in the second half of the season, if you will, before ultimately, I think it was week 10. After week 10, he was banged up, didn't play anymore. But he ended up with 22 catches, 310 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He scored all 5 of those touchdowns in his last 4 games, weeks 7 to 10. And so I think the sky's the limit for him in terms of what he can do. And we know that Jim Mora and his staff love to use tight ends in their offense. And, they convinced Juice to come there, follow them over. And I think he's going to be heavily featured in this offense. Dare I say he could be the leading receiver over, receivers, running backs, etc. He's going to be the focal point of that passing game. I expect a very, very big season from him. And I am excited to see his teammate Haas Haney there at quarterback as well.
Yeah, he's a little dual threat as well. And what we saw from him just in the little bit of action as the starter of Oklahoma State was impressive. Let's see what Colorado State can do this year. I mean, they're going to be super fun. All right, we talked about Sparks and Dawn, the Texas State wide receivers with Brad Jackson. Jackson, Sparks, and Dawn sounds like a law firm, by the way, or a cleaning company, which one you want to take the route of. How about the other wide receiver you have on this list, and Josiah Freeman of Fresno State? Not many people, unless you're from the Valley, are talking about Freeman. What makes you put him on this list?
So the first time I'd ever heard the name Josiah Freeman was in 2023. And a friend of our podcast, who was a writer for NBC Sports at the time, now he's with Yahoo Sports, Eric Froton. He was at the NFL Combine, and he was talking with a then former Fresno State quarterback, Jake Haener. He asked Jake Haener, hey, who do we need to know about, next season for Fresno State? And Jake Haener said Josiah Freeman. That was the first time, that I had ever heard the name Josiah Freeman. And he came over from JUCO. He battled a lot of injuries his first few years there at Fresno State. But then finally in 2025, we got to see the Josiah Freeman, that 2 years before Jake Haener told us all about. Just a breakout year for him. Lots of rumors this offseason that Ole Miss was trying to get Josiah Freeman to enter the portal and come over, but he stuck with Fresno State and he remained loyal. He had 52 catches, 642 yards, and 6 touchdowns a year ago. Now, most folks are going to look at those numbers and be like, what's the big deal, right? That's not a big deal. If you know anything about the Fresno State offense, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to, Matt Ince wants to run the ball, and run the ball some more. And so the fact that, Josiah Freeman was able to put up those kind of numbers in that offense, the fact that a program like Ole Miss, who's going to be a national championship contender, was trying to get Josiah Freeman should tell you all you need to know about the talent that this young man has. And, what he did last year was in this offense was just really, really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. We just talked at the beginning of this segment how the running back duos are impressive at Boise State. Fresno State's right behind them with Rashawn Luke and Donaldson as well. They want to run the football. So Freeman being able to branch out like that is super impressive. There is no doubt about that. I just hope the quarterback battle works and they figure out the quarterback situation. If so, then Fresno State is truly a contender in my eyes in this conference. I love this. I love this one. If you like it, if you disagree with it, if there's a name missing, I want to hear you in the comments. Shout out. Let us know your thoughts down there below. All right, let's get the defense because you got another great one here talking about multiple names on the all Pac-12 G5 preseason at 2026 defense. We'll do that next to finish up this show. It's Locked On Pac-12. But first, this episode of Locked On Pac-12 is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. That's right, baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, well, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now it's your chance to make your prediction before first pitch. For Thursday night, I'm paying attention to those Dodgers and Braves. I think that one's going to be potentially home run city. We'll see what happens on there. Maybe not against Chris Sale, but maybe the other way around. Maybe the Braves go wild in this one. That's where I'm going with my daily dinger of the day. So if you're ready to play your game today, join all the action on FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and play and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel. It's the official partner of MLB. All right, final few minutes here on the show. Thank you so much for making this your first listen of the day. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. I'm Christian Rauh, Justice of the G5 Hive, joining me for today's conversation because we're talking about his and his crew's work. They're diving into this really awesome preseason list that they had for the Pac-12 that just dropped just a few days ago. Make sure you go check that out on all their social channels. They have great content as well. You guys broke down every single group of 16?
Every single, yes. Yeah, plus insane. 13 player interviews as well as head coach interviews.
Are you excited to finally kick your feet up and watch football now that you're finally done with prep?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into the defensive side here. Make sure you go check them out. We'll put it in the show notes below, by the way, wherever you're listening and watching. You can just click that link, make that your next listen on today's doing, if you will. All right, on the defensive side, you had obviously Simeon Harris of Fresno State's on there. He was your defensive player of the year back in corner, but we'll go from the edge and we'll go all the way back. You have Jaden Virgin Morgan of Boise State and Linus Zunk of Washington State on your edges. Interior defensive line, Dijon Lafferty of Fresno State, Gabriel Lightfoot of San Diego State. On the linebackers, Omar Diomande, I think I got that right. Diomande, thank you. These words are going to get better, I promise. I'm going to have to say them all the time now. So these names, some of them are impressive. Some of being out on the West Coast, some of them are impressive. Absolutely. Linebacker Harrison Taggart, linebacker Bowen Phelps, cornerback Salasa Vadwale. How'd I do there?
Vadrale, yeah.
Okay, close. That was close. I'm gonna give myself a B+ on that. Safety Brevlin Hamlin and safety Josiah Cox and punter Oscar Doyle. Okay, great. Let's start with Jaden Virgin Morgan because that's where a lot of people usually place their vote on the defensive player of the year for the Pac-12. It's usually him. It's not Simeon Harris, at least from what I've seen. You know, there's been a few other places, but it's usually Jaden Virgin Morgan because they believe he's the most NFL-ready player in all of the conference. That's what the consensus is giving us. Not the G5 Hive, though. They got Harris, but he's still on your list of all Pac-12. What do you like about him?
He is the epitome of Boise State, right? I think when you think of Boise State, like obviously, like you think of the greats, right? You think of Kellen Moore, you think of Ashton Jeanty, but when you think about like what was it about those guys, like Jaden Virgin Morgan, he exudes those same qualities, right? I mean, his head coach has called him an absolute beast on the field, an even better person off of it. he kind of embodies what Boise State culture is all about, right? With his character, his work ethic, his loyalty, and his leadership. He had a breakout year in 2024. It's kind of the magical season there for Boise State. And I just want to take a moment to say Ashton Jeanty was absolutely robbed of the Heisman Trophy. You cannot convince me that he did not deserve it. He did. He was the best college football player. That's what the award goes to. Not who's going to be in the best of the NFL, not who can play the most snaps. It is who is the best college football player, and he was absolutely the best. Yes. But let's get back to Jaden Virgin.
No, that was important. That was important. Continue.
He had 40 tackles that year, 15.5 tackles for loss, and 10 sacks. Fast forward to 2025. He had kind of a down year, right? In terms of, pressures and sacks. He only had six sacks. He posted better tackle numbers with 56 and similar tackles for loss with 13. But what changed, right? Well, what changed was he lost his running mate, Ahmed Hassanian, on the opposite side. He's gone to I think it's the Detroit Lions now. So Jaden Virgin Morgan last year was he was the man, right? He was the one getting so much more attention his way. And I think that was part of why it was maybe a disappointing season, right? 2 years ago, he was the secondary guy. He was the unknown, right? Everyone's throwing everything at Ahmed, and Jaden kind of had free reign. Well, last year he got all that attention. And so, it was kind of a disappointing year, I think, in terms of numbers. It doesn't mean he's any less of a player. And so I think I expect him to kind of have a big bounce back year, right? Like, I think he kind of would have taken that kind of personally, right? Hey, I know the sack numbers weren't where they needed to be or what people expected of me. This is my last year. This is my one last shot to show everyone what I got, and I'm gonna go out and do it, right? It's, for lack of a better word, it's the money year, right? That he's playing for that draft capital. So I do think he's gonna have a better year. But for us, like I said earlier, we just had to give the nod to Simeon Harris. When you get great, people just don't understand great cornerback play. When you have a great corner, it makes guys like Jaden Virgin Morgan so much better, right? When Simeon Harris can lock down a receiver for long enough for Jaden to get that sack, right? And they help each other, right? Vice versa. The edge guy gets the sack or puts pressure. Maybe he hurries the throw and that leads to interception for Simeon. But for us, it was just, we just thought Simeon, what he did last year was so great. I think, he's just kind of scratching the surface there. And, cornerbacks are on an island. And so we like to spread the love out, right? I will say this is probably the first time we've done our list where every single offensive player of the year was a quarterback. We don't normally have that. But we just felt so strongly about the quarterbacks this year. But we do try to spread the love when it's warranted. When we see a great cornerback or a great receiver, et cetera, we want to show those guys some love too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that for sure. And that's why I'm glad I had you on the show, because you certainly have really helped with shining the Pac-12, and I really do appreciate that. Omar Diamande is a monster. I have seen press conferences of him. I haven't seen him up close, but Kevin Lytle, the beat writer for Colorado State, came on the show, and he agreed. He confirmed that he is an absolute unit. Yes. He is an adult man, he's exciting to watch. Just like Juice Vereen of Colorado State, another player coming in from the portal, following Mora over from UConn, and man, he's impressive. And I think he does truly have an opportunity to be an absolute chaos monster at Colorado State. What do you like about him?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Omar Diamande, he's a beast. I think a lot of folks don't know about him, right? But they're gonna know about him come November.
Best kept secret, if so.
he was a pretty low rated recruit out of the Bronx. I believe his only offer before UConn found him was from Wagner.
Wow.
But he exploded onto the scene a year ago at Connecticut. 116 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. In the Connecticut's victory over ACC champion Duke, he had 14 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. And like I said, folks, if you don't know who he is, you're going to know by the end of November. The Pac-12 should be this. Let this serve as your notice. Yeah. As most people know, Jim Mora came over from UConn. A lot of this team followed him. He's the head coach now at Colorado State. Almost an entirely new roster, almost an entirely new staff. but they did retain defensive coordinator Tyson Summers. And I'm going to tell you why that is important for Omar Diamande. So before he was at Colorado State, Tyson Summers was a defensive coordinator at Western Kentucky. And in 2022, he had a player by the name of Jaquez Evans. That season, Jaquez Evans had 106 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, and 8.5 sacks. That is the role that Omar Diamande is going to be used, how he's going to be used this year at Colorado State. And in my opinion, Omar is a much more talented player than Jaquez Evans was. And so all that leads to a monster year for Omar Diamande.
Telling you, Colorado State is such a wild card, man. I can't place them where they should go, but hey, man, players like this are the reason why. There's no doubt. All right, let's talk one more player before we get out of here. Utah State's Brevlin Hamlin. I think he's such a fascinating player. He's obviously Utah State's probably maybe the best player on their entire roster, let alone obviously their defense. He's such an interesting player. The way he plays the game, I think, is unique. Take me through Hamlin's game.
Yeah, he is another great story. Another JUCO guy. He came from Utah Tech. And I'm going to borrow some words from our good friend Brian Phillips, who runs the Big Blue USU Aggie News. So if you're a Utah State Aggie football fan or basketball, go follow Brian. Like he covers it all there. But back to Brevin Hamlin. When they initially got him to Logan, the plan was to try and put 30 pounds on him and turn him into a linebacker. Well, once they saw him in spring camp, the coaches, they were like, this guy's got to be on the field, right? We don't have time to pack on weight and make him a linebacker. We got to put him on the field today. And he's just so quick and sideline to sideline with that speed. So they're like, hey, we're gonna put him at our boundary safety position, right? He started right away for the Aggies in week 1, and he kind of never looked back after that. He finished second on the team in tackles with 114, had 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss, 8 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery, and a 38-yard pick six. It was the first Aggies defensive score of the season. He earned Mountain West Defensive Player of the Week honors once and was an all Mountain West honorable mention. And he's going to be someone that I fully expect to be on the all Pac-12 team come the end of the year. I guess that there is a slight knock on him, maybe like it's his coverage skills. But in this defense, that's not like his primary responsibility, right? He is to fly all over the field, make hits and tackle folks. I'm sure like in this offseason, he has worked on his coverage skills, but man, like he is very much a throwback to an old school type of safety.
I love that. All right, that wraps it up for this. I'm so excited. I'm so happy you came on the show. We are we're a week away. Yeah, 8 days away from USC and Fresno State opening up Pac-12 play for us. Obviously, it's a non-conference game. We'll make sure I'm very clear. That's a non-conference game. USC is not in the Pac-12, but that's the first time we're going to see any of these new squads take off 8 days away. Obviously, we get week 0 action. I know you're going to be fully in tune just a few days from now, checking out everything across the group of 6. And I'm sure your coverage, even though you did a full team preview on everybody, I'm sure coverage doesn't sleep at all for you guys throughout the season. Where can everybody find your work? Because I'd love to get people sent over there as well.
Yeah. So on X at G5 Hive, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on TikTok. I think that's all the socials, YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, Amazon Music, Apple, Spotify, etc. We go in season. We go live on YouTube every Monday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And those shows get kind of long. They're sometimes 2-3 hours long, and it's because we're either talking about what just happened in every G6 game, or we're previewing that next week's games. Now, after we record that live show, we do break those down if you want smaller segments, so you can go to the video section and see that and not have to watch that live feed. But yeah, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're there. We do the show weekly. In the summer, we do what you alluded to earlier, our Worker Bee series, where we do team previews of every G6 team, and they're in depth, man. We talk offensive line, we talk defensive line, kickers, punters, you name it. We talk about it. They're anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and we're talking with folks that are, the experts on that team, the boots on the ground folks, to kind of get that in-depth knowledge. And we just, like I said, just wrap that up. That's available if you're trying to catch up. Head over to our YouTube page and look for our Worker Bee series, and there will be one for every single Pac-12 team.
Love it. Yeah, I'm going to drop the show notes in the show notes below. Check the link out. It's going to go directly to their YouTube channel. Make that your next listen today. Justice, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to make sure that this isn't the only time that you're over here on Locked On Pac-12, because we got lots of football to talk over the next 12 weeks and plus 12 weeks and more. That's going to wrap it up. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Let's get out of here. It's Locked On Pac-12.